All right, for today, we're going to analyze bivariate data. All right, bivariate. Let me write that down. For us to understand. So let me write that. Bi basically means two. Variate means variable. So I'm going to be dealing with graphs that are going to be dealing with two variables, two things that change. So here, question number 41. I'm going to work two questions today, 41 and 42. So it talks about economists have found that amount of corruption in a country is correlated to the productivity of that country. As a matter of fact, I can see some information here. Corruption score. All right. So at the bottom, those numbers represent the score on corruption. Now here on the left, GDP, which is gross domestic product per capita. It talk about dollar wise. Or you guys can see the information on the left, right? You guys can read this. So now I'm going to be answering a few questions here. Okay. Now, the first one, according to the model, what will be the GDP per capita of a country with a corruption score of 44? It says round your answer to the nearest dollar. What I want you guys to do here, and in reality, is I see, let me use blue for here, the corruption score is 44. So I look at corruption score and I'm looking for 44. Okay. So I'm going to be looking at 44. That's about here. And I'm going to draw a line. Let me do a line at 44. It's more like right there. And I want to see where I reach the line there. Now the line, this line will give me a number on the left. I see is more than 10,000, less than 15,000. I'm going to say the number in between is 12,500, right? So I'm going to say, all right, my number here is more than 10,000, less than 12,500. I'm not going to be too picky exactly what number you choose. So I'm just going to say, all right, in this case, it seems to be about 12,000. Right, $12,000, you don't have to write the dollar symbol. So matter of fact, on your homework, you're not going to be able to type in the dollar symbol. I'm just asking for the numerical answer. I want to make sure you know how to read this graph. Now, using this model, a country with a corruption score of 81. Okay, so let me erase my work here. Corruption score of 81. That will be about here. We'll have what GDP per capita? So I'm just going to say, all right, if I was to extend that line, what number would it give me on the left? I know it's outside of the graph. So I'm going to say that looks about 25,000. And then my last question here, let me erase my work from the graph. My last question says a GDP per capita of 16,000. All right, so 16,000. Let me do a better line than that. 16,000 is about here, right? $16,000. It's about there. Corresponds to what corruption scored according to the model. So now the number given comes from the left. So what will be the number at the bottom? More than 50, less than 60, not too much more than 50. So I'm going to say in this case, I will say, so it looks about 52. Some of you might be like, how do I know exactly what number? Since I have to guess a little based on the graph, I have to base a little. To be honest, there's more than one multiple answered. And as a matter of fact, I'm gonna put a range. The homework is gonna accept a range. I have a minimum and I have a maximum numbered for your possible answers. Any answer in between will be good. So some of you, I rate it as about 52. Some of you might say, oh, that looks about 54 instead. If we type it in, it will give us correct, both of us. Again, I'm not going for an exact number. The way I did the homework, I'm gonna accept a range. There's a minimum number that I accept and there's a maximum number that I accept. Anything in between will be good. So you don't think you have to be that exact. Now let's take a look at question number 42. Talks about the height and weight of several adults in here. It gives me a table. We can see a table, right? It talks about the height of a person and the weight of a person. And I can see it also as a graph. It even gives me an equation, but I'm not going to work on the equation for today. I'm going to say, all right, using this model, I'm going to look at question number 8. Using this model, so looking at the information that I have here, what will be the weight of someone who is 5.95 feet tall? So it's a little less than 6 feet. I see the information about feet is at the bottom, right? You guys can see information about feet is at the bottom. Information about weight is on the right. So it says 5.95 feet, which is a little less than 6. I'm going to use my graph and it reaches about there, that point. Now, that point represents a number on the left, and that's my answer. Seems to be less than 160, right? Just a little bit less than 160. So what I'm going to say, in my case, let me say it about 158. That's how I see it. I see it about 158. Again, there's not an exact answer. I'm going to accept a range. Some of you might say, that looks like 157. Yeah, that's correct as well. I want us to make sure we know how to read the graphs. Let's take a look at question B. Let me erase my work from here. According to the model, so again, I'm basing everything on the graph here. What will be the weight of someone who is 7 feet tall? Okay, so 7 feet. So the information on feet is at the bottom. I see 7, and I'm just going to go up where it crosses the line. All right, the line doesn't quite cross it, so I can always extend it. So it's about here. This will represent a number on the side. Okay, so it seems like each segment here, the side I'm going by 10. I see stops at 190. That's about 200, 210. So I'm going to say in this case, notice I had to extend my numbers a little. I'm going to say 7 feet, according to the data here, will be about 210 pounds. Again, it might vary with some people. Some of you might be 7 feet tall and you guys don't weigh 210. But I'm going based on the information that I have here. My last question, what height corresponds to a weight of 130 pounds? 130 pounds. Okay, so the pounds is the numbers on the left. Find 130. And I'm gonna go 130 all the way until I reach my line. And that's about here. All right, because the number given was on the left, what does this number represent at the bottom? Right, it's more than 5, less than 5.5. Right, I'm gonna read this as a 5.4. Again, some of you might say that looks like 5.32. All right, that's fine. There's not an exact answer. I want us to start learning how to read. We can read the graphs. Okay, let me zoom out. That way you guys can see what we work on today. We did questions 41 and 42 from our notes.